What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here from Datadash, and today is November 10th of 2023. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, I want to spend some time to not only do a quick review of the market and spend some time to talk about Bitcoin's price action over the last 24 to 48 hours, but I want to spend some time to do something a little bit different today. I want to spend some time to interview one of my good friends, Tommy World Power, a fellow cryptocurrency YouTuber, and someone who's on the general other side of the aisle here on the perspective of where we are when it comes to Bitcoin and the broader crypto markets, and in regards to cycles and price action looking forward. And I wanted to kind of bring on this voice to kind of showcase again from someone who I really admire what the bullish perspective is, so we can get more thoughts and opinions here. Even though we still stay relatively grounded in our opinion, I think it's best to have a lot of fresh voices coming in. Now, before we do that, I just want to run through and give you guys a quick update for some context in case you guys haven't been watching the charts. Bitcoin is up currently at around 36,500. The other day it was sitting at around 38K, but faded a lot of those gains after some news came out that there is a new ETF application in the state of Delaware from BlackRock for a Ethereum ETF now. So it's looking like not only is BlackRock confident here about a Bitcoin ETF coming in, but outside of that as well, that they've already begun the process to potentially file an Ethereum ETF. Now, again, I just want to clarify, there's no guarantee that they're going to get that. Ethereum is a different type of asset here. But again, just to let you guys know here, this is what essentially led Bitcoin losing about 1,000, technically actually around like $2,000, I think, from the relative highs, down from 38K down to around a little under 36,000 in a matter of just 2 hours. And Ethereum propelling up around 12% in a single day, coming up back towards the same resistance range from back in April. So coming back here to the long-term time frame, we're going to have to see if that's going to be able to really break out here. We're going to give it some time, see how things develop here. There's really no new headlines outside of this piece of news here. So the continued buying here, I think, is just around speculation and optimism about the inflows. And again, I come back here to the total charts here. This is really kind of the make or break moment here. We've got to hold these kind of valuations as total now for overall market cap. Ethereum, Bitcoin, and the broader crypto space is now at its highest level since back in June. So it's going to be a question of whether or not we can really close this month in November above that level. And if we do, guys, this could very well be a point where we need to start considering doing maybe a little bit more dollar cost averaging, or maybe having some exposure to the market. Albeit, I still, as I've said here on the channel for a long time, don't believe we've got the full-scale momentum for a full-scale bull market. The big thing that's got me concerned here is global liquidity is still right down here. It's on a generally negative trend here. It's paused here since around August, but we're not accelerating. And if we consider where Bitcoin's price is right now versus that global liquidity, we have yet to see this kind of high premium since back in March of 2022. So again, if we don't see that liquidity propelling the market, I'm very cautious about really getting bullish long term. Not to mention, one thing that's got me concerned is the yield curve is uninverting here. This means that we might potentially have a short-term window where the Fed kicks the can down the road, providing that kind of short-term optimism, but is really not going to deal with inflation now, leaving it in a position where it could come raging back. And that, to me, leaves me in a very concerning position. But nonetheless here, I keep open to the idea that other things could play out. I do believe that there is some chance of that narrative that no matter what happens with inflation or monetary policy, that people lose trust in currency, they lose trust in the financial system, and they may be looking for that asymmetric, non-correlated asset, which is, in many people's eyes, Bitcoin. So I wanted to go ahead, dive into this interview with Tommy. We're going to talk about Bitcoin in the market and also dive into his project, Energi, later on in the sponsored portion of the video. So let's go ahead and kick things off. Alrighty, everyone. So we are here today with one of my good friends, Tommy World Power. He's not only a fellow cryptocurrency YouTuber, but one of the few really genuine friends I've gotten to make over the past few years in crypto. I always think about Tommy when I'm thinking about, kind of catching early stage trends in the space, watching what's going on not only in the altcoin market, but also in the kind of broader cycles for Bitcoin and ETH and some of the larger plays. To always get kind of that opinion out there in the space that even might differ from mine sometimes. So Tommy, pleasure to have you on, man. It's always good to have you here on the channel, and thanks for making the time.
Thanks, Nick. Always good to be here. Exciting day in the market today. You guys watching it, obviously seen Bitcoin broke through 36, 37K, ETH over 2K. So good to see things waking up.
Yeah, man. It's a crazy time. I have to be honest, as you know, I've been kind of on the more kind of conservative side of things. on my expectations for market cycle. But I have to be honest, it seems like the optimism has been kind of riding into this. And I want to spend some time today to mainly kind of talk about the market first and foremost, that we can kind of dive into some discussion points around energy, because I know you guys are building what I think is a lot of solutions to a lot of the existing problems in DeFi. But let's go ahead, man. I want to kind of give you the stage here, Tommy. Like, where my views have been kind of around the kind of macro concerns in the market. But right now, there seems to be a lot of interest going into this Bitcoin ETF application potentially being approved here. Many people feel the odds are pretty much guaranteed. And even now, I think just on Twitter, like a couple moments before we're doing this interview now, I think in Delaware, there was like some registration for iShares essentially to potentially file for a Ethereum ETF. And that just led Bitcoin now to drop from that high you were mentioning down like 4 or 5%, and ETH just popped up to 2K. So there's a lot of volatility, a lot of big movements going on. So I'm curious to get like your perspective. What's your thoughts on really kind of the micro conditions, what's going on in the Bitcoin economy? And maybe even later on, we can talk about how that may play on the macro scale as well.
For sure. Well, I'll just say firstly, Nick, I share your sentiments like with the economy and stuff, like things are obviously not great in the real world right now. Interest rates rocketed off at like pretty much a faster pace than any time. So things are things don't look great on that front. But the crazy thing about crypto is the fastest growing asset class in the world. And it's something we always have to remember, and something we always have to be grateful for, and I've been in crypto actively since 2013 and started watching it in 2012. I started watching Bitcoin when it was around $10. And there were very few coins out at that time. There was like 17 coins on CoinMarketCap. And one thing I learned early on from Bitcoin is just don't fade it. Like normally when a stock goes up that much, it'll come back down to earth. Bitcoin, no. I mean, it went from $10, surged to $200. I was like, okay, it's going to come back down to like $20. No, the lowest it went was like around $100. It dipped to $50 at some point. So we've seen this with crypto. So I think it's a really important, of course, this is my take, but on the other hand too, there's these harsh bear markets that we go through, right? And this bear market's been brutal. This bear market's been absolutely brutal, especially for the more speculative coins or lower cap coins. But that's kind of my sorry if I didn't answer your question directly, but
no,
that's kind of like the big picture.
I think that's a very, to be honest, Tommy, like this is why, again, like a lot of people have the kind of misconception that we've shorted this year. We did talk about potentially doing like a temporary short on Bitcoin, but we mainly remained in cash since August of 2022. And I have to tell you, one of the biggest things that's always crossed my mind is that principle that Bitcoin itself is, I mean, not only from I think a technological and fundamental perspective, it's a very simple yet predictable asset from a functionality standpoint. And from a performance standpoint, Bitcoin, albeit is having diminishing returns with most cycles, is still yielding some of the best returns. It's the best performing asset, I guess, if you don't compare individual altcoins in the market, versus kind of broader asset classes, bonds, what's going on in equities. So I would love to, again, kind of dive deeper into that, because from that micro perspective, one of the big theses here that you've mentioned, and I know that kind of position you have focusing on performance is kind of rooted in some of the data science models. You've had your own custom models as well that you've talked about on YouTube before. And again, I admire that kind of analysis and stuff, looking back at historical price action and looking at the long term. But I'm curious to hear, like, do you see, Tommy, like this being kind of the perfect storm here? Because the narrative I've heard from a lot of bulls is that essentially Bitcoin is going to be this asymmetric asset. And that's kind of been a narrative for a while, but now especially because you've got bonds collapsing. TLT, for example, the big bond ETF, has closed down 20 years worth of gains. It's US treasuries. Along with that as well, equities are kind of juiced up right now because of AI. But if you take out the Magnificent Seven, the broader stock market's just been kind of abysmal. It hasn't really recovered. So I'm curious to see like where you think Bitcoin plays in that, and where you think the Fed is going to go. And maybe there is this opportunity where we see a 1970s style gold rally for Bitcoin. I don't know if that's kind of the camp you're coming from, at least from when we've had previous conversations before.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point, that we actually haven't been through something like this before. When Bitcoin was created, it was created as a response to the last financial crisis.
Mm.
We're going into a potentially worse financial crisis than we saw in 2008. So we don't know. We've never been through this before with crypto. But there one thing to keep on your radar is this could be a surprise for us. It could be a surprise in either direction. It could underperform this cycle, or it could go bonkers. But I will say, just watching where we are at with the cycles, this is the part, usually 6 months before the halving, which is pretty much where we're at right now, Bitcoin starts moving up, and we're seeing that behavior reflect. And it could be because of what's going on under the surface, these ETFs and whatnot, or part of it could just be cyclical too. So we have to keep that in mind. But yeah, if you zoom out on the charts, you can clearly see, the bear market is ending. If there is a big macro event, a big black swan, yes, that can affect everything. It can affect everything, and that includes crypto. But what are we going to do? We can't sit on our hands, right? We have to have some exposure. So that's I think it's good to retain a cash position, not financial advice, but always good to have a cash position, in my opinion, at least part of your portfolio. But when you see these sorts of movements, it's kind of confirming that the market is behaving as we would expect it to at this time. That's kind of my big picture. And I say that again, you guys, and this is the mistake I made in one of the past cycles. Like, don't get caught up on other stuff and forget about crypto, right? The macro stuff is crazy. It's looming, what's going to go on in the economy, but let's not lose sight of crypto, because we don't want to be late to the cycle per se. Of course, that's my perspective, but that is something coming from my own experience too.
Yeah, and this is again, like on our channel, we've kind of pointed out to the idea and stuff that even if you remain more kind of cautious in the market, you're always welcome to do like a partial dollar cost average, get some exposure, have some, essentially dip your toes a bit, like even if you're more skeptical, as a hedge at the end of the day. And I think, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with that at the end of the day, especially if you are going off of those bets of like the halving event, potential ETF playing. Now, I'm curious to hear now, Tommy, like now that there might be this ETH ETF as well, do you think that this is going to be a part of a broader trend and focus on altcoins as well in their market share? And again, this is very early stuff, but kind of thinking from your vision and stuff about how the market's developing, do you see that being a potential, like another additional focus for institutions, or do you think that there's going to be some hesitation there?
Yeah, good question. I think the doors are starting to open. The ETFs have been delayed forever, right? It looks like they're around the corner, and yeah, once it starts, I think it'll get rolling. I think that there was a hesitancy from the traditional financial world to open this door per se, but they kind of realized it was impossible to stop it, right? I mean, that you hear the BlackRock CEO talking about how many requests they had for Bitcoin. It's like an overwhelming amount that you just can't ignore it, and that's eventually what happens. So, yeah, totally. I think that'll be something that fuels this cycle, and then of course, so much of crypto is hype. Once the hype starts and you start hearing your friends and people around you talking about it, the cycle's kind of picked up in earnest. The bear markets, everyone's scared, no one wants to spend a dollar. But then once it starts going up, everyone's trying to get every dollar they can to put into it, and hence the cycles,
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so you essentially perceive that, like, coming into this halving event, or at least a couple months out, we're already starting to get that emotional sign that the halving's coming up, prices are moving higher. It's not even so much about the fundamental developments of what's going on with Bitcoin, but it's the price goes up, retail steps in. Yeah,
it's a psychology thing. Yeah, exactly.
I see it. Very cool. And I don't want to sidetrack too much from crypto, but you were mentioning as well, Tommy, that you do believe that we could be entering into one of like the bigger recessions. And I understand like your ideas that Bitcoin and crypto may be able to kind of pivot from that, or at least be maybe kind of asymmetric asset, be separate from that trend. Where do you see things heading, man, over the next couple months with like the Fed and like what's going on? I mean, again, I don't want to talk so much about central bank monetary policy, but do you think inflation's going to re-kick back in? Do you think that there really may be mass de-dollarization or a falling of the dollar, a default in the United States? I mean, really, big picture stuff. I've been hearing, again, a lot of people like yourself who I respect and stuff, and I always want to keep an open mind, like, to hearing that opinion. So I'm curious to hear where you stand on that. I want to make sure you can spend some time to chat about it.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I mean, the long and short of it is, interest rates affect a lot of things. They say every percent you drop interest rates is like $3 trillion stimulus. And I feel like it works the opposite way around. So we've hiked what, from pretty much 0% to 5%. That's a lot of economic drain, and the yield curve is uninverting, and that's usually a precursor for a recession. The yield curve inverts, and then when it's uninverting, that's I think you talked about that as well too.
Yeah.
And so what the yield curve uninverting consists of is the long-term rates are going to go up. That puts a lot of pressure on stuff, or the short-term rates have to drop, which the Fed doesn't want to drop short-term rates right now. So we're kind of in this not great situation. I mean, we all feel the economic tightness around us. I think everyone does feel it. I know. I remember you talking about that on your videos as well too. We all feel that. So where does that end? I mean, no one has a crystal ball, but typically these things do come before a recession. So we don't know for sure, but that's what it looks like. But so you got to kind of keep that in mind, and then also keep the crypto aspect in mind too, that again, maybe crypto responds extremely well to these effects. We don't know.
The one point I was thinking about, Tommy, as well, and this is something I think we need to keep open to, which is that even from kind of my more kind of conservative viewpoint, I think it is true that, as you said, you can have this kind of asymmetric event, but more specifically, even though liquidity may feel like it's contracting, we are seeing global liquidity kind of going down, generally speaking, at least from the metrics that I have available to me. The point that I would say is that there can still be these short-term waves that play out in the market. And kind of on the final topic of kind of crypto here, I wanted to kind of ask you, do you feel like this ETF event, the macro right now, maybe you can give it in a percentage odds as well from your current perspective, do you really see us setting a new all-time high? So getting above 65K and maybe even getting towards six-digit territory, like 100K plus price for this cycle. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that, considering the expected inflows and kind of the macro thesis.
For sure. Well, I will say the last cycle we had in 2021 was a little bit underwhelming. I think we all felt that. I thought it had more juice in it. But as a result, if you compare 2017, that cycle, to 2021, 2017 was way
much
more
bigger. Yeah.
ETH started 2017 in single digits. It was I did an interview when it was $7 in December 2016, and then it was $10 beginning of 2017. By the end of 2017, it's $1,500. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And then this 2021 cycle, we peaked at 4,500 ish or whatever. So I mean, it wasn't that much higher. So that's why I'm thinking this cycle might have some surprises for us. And again, who knows? Because there's these other variables in play, like the macroeconomic situation, high interest rates and all that. But personally, my target for Bitcoin this cycle is 100 to 200K. And for Ethereum, between 10 to 30K is what I'm looking at the peak. That's kind of my range. So yeah, I think the ETF is going to feed into it. Probably a lot of other things. Of course, again, the halving, the psychology aspect of it, and I always like looking at the parts of the market that are the money's really flowing right now, and meme coins. By the way, just be very careful with anything. Any small caps are very speculative. Just a fair warning. But it's crazy seeing the movements and volumes on meme coins. Go on Dex Tools, which is basically you can see all the ETH tokens. They're all meme coins for the most part. So the market seems to really like those at this time. It's probably not going to last forever, but just interesting to watch that. Oops, sorry, my alarm.
No, it's all good. No, that actually kind of leads me into wanting to talk a little bit about Energi here, Tommy, because I'm really interested. You guys have, as a project, an EVM compatible network. And just to let you guys know, Energi has been a kind of partner of ours for a long time here on the channel. I've been following Tommy and Energi since 2018. And I think what's interesting is that, you have this big price target you mentioned for Ethereum going to maybe 10K in this cycle. And I think that warrants, further adoption of DeFi, new applications coming in. And I wanted to spend some time to talk about where you guys have kind of gone with Energi, because I think one of the biggest things I've seen in the crypto space that's kind of left me curious about whether or not we've got the steam for that next cycle is about innovation and fixing the core issues with the crypto space. Like what kept Ethereum from going from 4,500 to potentially 10,000 in the last cycle? I always ask those kind of big questions. And the big one for me that I keep coming back to is not only like user experience and high gas fees and everything. You fixed not only the gas fee issue, but really the biggest issue is security, the constant exchange exploits or misuse of customer funds on centralized exchanges like FTX and Celsius and BlockFi. We have the DeFi protocols that just constantly get hacked. Like anything innovative or new just ends up breaking because Solidity is difficult to develop in, it requires a lot of code analysis. And what I think you guys have done right, Tommy, there was the exchange hack on CoinX recently, one of the large exchanges out there. And I think CoinX, it's a good exchange for the most part and everything, but problem was they had an exploit, a couple $1 million stolen, and the only coin that was really safe in this entire event was Energi. You guys were able to essentially reverse the hack and the transaction. So I wanted to spend some time to talk about your guys' focus on defense in depth, because I got to tell you, man, you're the only person in this space who I really say that with like a huge mark of respect, who cares about users, and outside of that as well has made it the prime focus of your protocol. And I think that that's going to help you guys win out long term, like in building a real network effect.
Yeah, thank you. You know what's crazy? I think about this regularly. I'm either one of so first of all, let me say this. I'm blessed that I was an early investor. I actually wasn't that early. I invested, my biggest investment was at my early big investment was at the peak of the 2013 cycle. It was when Bitcoin was peaking out around 1,000. And then I bought a bunch of Dogecoin as well around then. Dogecoin came out February 2014-ish. So I bought a bunch of Dogecoin at the peak at that time too, which is now much lower. But I carried through. And even though I bought initially the peak, I wrote it down and I kept buying it. I bought Ethereum at the ICO for 50 cents. I believe that was in 2014. And I bought more at $1 at 2015 and 2016. In 2016, ETH went from $1 to $10 and off to the races from there. But what I want to say is it's my gratitude. I want to say that to you guys. Remember to be grateful for crypto. If you have friends who are fading it, you got to pay attention to it every single day and be grateful for it every day. And then it will reward you. And that's what I did. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have those resources to be able to make the blockchain that I felt the world needed. Energi was created on the 4th of July, 2017, and it was a message to the universe. I wasn't planning on making a blockchain. It was like basically a very strong message I got on Independence Day that said, hey, you need to make a blockchain because you're going to make a blockchain like no one else. And now it's been, we're 2023 now. We are 6 years out. Man, let me say something first of all, you guys. Building a blockchain is a ton of work. I don't recommend it. So make sure your purpose is very strong. If you
Doing anything in crypto is like, oh man, it's difficult. It's difficult, man.
Yeah. And I didn't know what I was going to do that was unique. Now I know. And actually, so this is where I'm like every day or every other day, I like feel like I go in the twilight zone where it's like I'm either one of the most underrated founders in the space or I'm absolutely nuts. I'm absolutely nuts because I made a blockchain like no one else. Like no, and I'm still baffled. Like how has no one else built a blockchain that has security as a fundamental aspect of it? And actually, I do see other projects, moving this direction and doing this. I know Radix is doing it with their, on the smart contract level, which is cool. The sort of solution that I implemented is all encompassing though. It's not just smart contracts. It also protects users against SIM swaps. It also protects against DNS hijacks and all these other ways you can get scammed. There's dozens of ways. I actually put some on my website. If you guys want to see energi.world, energy with an I.world, go to our defense page. I list it out. There's 15 different kinds of pretty significant common sorts of ways you can get scammed. And let me just say this, look, you guys do this because we've all been there. You guys know, I had a dream the other night, messed up. The dream was me getting wallet drained and fucking excuse my language. Everyone can relate to this. What is the worst feeling in the space? It's the worst feeling in the world. One of the worst feelings when you just lose your crypto to who knows what, who knows where. it's like it feels like it's going in the void because you don't even know who the perpetrator is, you know,
There's
and you may
no way
never
to
find out.
identify them. There's like little
Very
to no way to
difficult,
identify them, to get repercussions, get your funds back. I
dude.
mean, if you're lucky enough, you have white hat hackers that can come and maybe help recover, like on a protocol wide level. But I mean, it's so rare. Like at that point, by the time things may get resolved, if you're even lucky, in like the 10% of cases, the trust has been lost. Like it's completely gone by that point. So I wanted to hit on this point, Tom, because I think you're hitting right. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, man. I'm this is the biggest issue I found with DeFi, and it doesn't matter if it's going to be like an EVM ecosystem like you or Ethereum or maybe Binance Smart Chain or Polygon, or a new layer one like Radix, for example, who has a completely kind of like different approach. They have a new language framework. I think that there's a great argument to be made as well that you guys are already EVM compatible. So you guys already have that ability to adopt a lot of the existing applications. But I want to spend some time to kind of give people the really condensed, like brief summary of defense in depth and how it was able, essentially, in this case with CoinEx, you guys were able to get, tons of energy back. I think it was like 3 million energy. How much was it? Like, or
Yeah.
there's
3 million energy, which is a couple hundred grand. But yeah, they had like it was a big hack. They had
yeah,
I think it was in excess of 50 million stolen.
yeah.
So yeah, I will tell you guys how it works. But what I really want you guys to see and understand is the importance, right? The importance of a brand. Like why do we like Apple? Why do we like this or that? We like it because it's the values they stand for. And I created what I want to see more of in the space. Like we need ethical money. I've been saying for years the end game of crypto is competition for governance. Or you could say the end game crypto is competition for ethical money, because ultimately that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using the crypto, which we like what it stands for. We like the values behind it. And right now, everyone has cheap transactions. That's easy, fast transactions. Everyone can do that. That's not really a differentiator. But what makes you a differentiator is you have to understand crypto is ultimately money, and it can be used for other things, but ultimately it's money. We want to use ethical money. So I kind of backed up into it. I wasn't planning on fixing this, but it is a reflection of who I am, that I'm the only, or one of the only founders in the space who's built, a blockchain that properly protects against all these. So again, I wasn't planning on doing it. I am a security-minded person, so I have personally pursued a couple scammers and hackers and whatnot, and got some good. But like you're saying, it's so hard. It's so hard, you guys, to get like even if you get them, even if you catch them, even if they go in prison, you're not gonna necessarily get your money back. I've been through that,
Yeah.
So you need to really have those controls. So this is the mentality I came from. I'm like, no one's paid this way. What does it look like? So defense in depth is a term from cybersecurity, which basically means having layers of security, which is ultimately what you need. The layers of security we have, no one has. So the first layer is getting alerts, and you can get these on Ethereum and other blockchains, but they won't do much because you get an alert that your funds were stolen. Well, on Energi, you can get an alert. Sorry, my alarm keeps going off. On Energi, you can get. All right, cool. Let me remove this notification. We got a lot of notifications. Okay, so you want it. First thing you need is an alert. So if something happens, you're notified. You get an email that your funds moved. This is the same thing as you getting a text message on your phone saying, "Did you spend $5,000 on airline tickets?" You need a way to know something happened, right? And then you say no to that text message, and then you don't lose the money, right? This is the traditional sort of stuff that crypto needs. So that's level one. Everyone can do that. Not too many are, but everyone can do that. Level two is where we really innovated. Decentralized governance means you have a network that can vote. If there's a bad actor, that 10% of the network can come together and say, hey, that's a bad actor. We need to freeze that address. The network can do that. And the first thing I hear at this point is always, well, is that decentralized? And that brings, and this is where you really have to explore, what does decentralization means? And let me tell you guys, decentralization, like if you think of Napster back in the day, I used Napster when I was a kid. It got shut down, right? Why did Napster get shut down? Because there's centralized servers. They can go to them and say, hey, Napster, you gotta kill the servers. It's done. And that's what they did. But then torrents came, and you can never shut torrents down because torrents are decentralized. So decentralization to its core really means a network that cannot be taken down. It does not mean that there's no safety, security, protocols or governance built in the network. This is something that a lot of people get caught up on. So that's one. And again, I solved this because I was like, we have to solve this. You guys think about it. What does the future of crypto look like? Do you think we're going to bring in the whole world into this thing where they're getting scammed left and right from people
Yeah.
in any country without any recourse? There's no way. How is a big company going to deploy billions of dollars of assets or lose tens of billions of dollars in losses? You know, it will make them go bankrupt. They can't do it. They need a safe infrastructure, right? So this is the sort of futuristic thinking you have to apply. So anyway, we built that governance layer, and it works very well. For 3 years, we've had no theft that I know of. That's something I'm very proud of. And then the final layer is this. So say you even have security. The problem is that hackers and scammers a lot of times want to move those funds to an exchange as quickly as possible. Like within minutes, they want to get it out of reach. Yeah, liquidate it. You know, if they want to get it out of reach. So the third thing you need is the third layer is like the 3-day settlement. It's a 3-day settlement delay. Everything on the blockchain's fast. If you're swapping, you know, or anything, you get those done about as fast as Ethereum. If you're sending funds to a bridge or to an exchange, there's a 3-day delay. And the purpose of that is you have to have a time period to catch it. It's like when someone had some energy stolen last week, right? He let us know, immediately went and froze it. It was like 6 hours. By immediately, I mean like as soon as we knew. It was like 6 hours after it happened.
They could be asleep or something, so you do need a multi-day window. Yeah.
So these are the 3 layers, you guys. And I just want to say this is the most advanced security in space. No one has this. I'm always looking for any blockchain that is this advanced. No one has these all 3 layers. The third layer is critical, but it just shows me like a lot of blockchains haven't got to level 2 yet. They're definitely not at level 3 yet. Yeah, again, just the question I wonder sometimes is, you know, what is a blockchain worth that does this, you know? And that is something to think about. And I'm really proud that I built the ideal blockchain, and now I'm getting it out there to the world. And it is a different angle because I do like EVM. I want to keep it EVM compatible. You know, all the upgrades MetaMask does. We literally change a couple lines in our code in our thing, and it works. You know, all the open source stuff. So I have a lot of love for Ethereum personally, and I wanted to keep Energi very similar to Ethereum. So that's why it's very similar, but it has this key aspect, which Ethereum is missing, and I think it's necessary for the future.
Yeah, man. I think that, again, the migration ability from existing L1s and L2s that are EVM compatible to be able to just move into Energi is a very big benefit for you guys to potentially have a catalyst for growth in this cycle. One of the things I wanted to kind of close on here and give you a proper amount of time to discuss is the focus on NFTs, because you know, Tommy, I've been kind of, and I'll say it here on the channel, I've been a little bit out of touch on NFTs and stuff. I mean, I definitely know about the trend cycles over the last few years and how it's changed as a sector, but you've mentioned a lot of the problems that really left the NFTs in such a brutal bear market. And I think you're trying to build Energi into becoming the leading network here for NFTs as a trend, whether it be for profile picture communities or also for all the different types of NFT use cases. But you've essentially focused on this big issue of royalties and essentially how you guys are aiming to solve that with Gonna Make It, or GMI, which is your guys' NFT marketplace you're building. You have currently launched the alpha recently. I wanted to give you a little bit of time to chat about where you guys are with that. What's your goal and vision? And also as well, just kind of the big picture with that.
For sure. By the way, this is another issue with crime. It's royalty theft. And that's what's happening on every other blockchain. Royalty theft, and it's because of a lack of governance. So another thing that we solve. Royalties are like the lifeblood of NFTs. I know a lot of you guys may not be in NFTs yet. A lot of my community still isn't in them, and I was really hesitant and leery of NFTs at the beginning. But what I saw in NFTs, just so you guys know, there's a very powerful community component to it, like that doesn't exist in blockchain otherwise. There's a really powerful, cohesive community. I've never seen that in blockchain, and I don't see that in other communities, not very often. So, but the NFT communities have really been suffering because of the lack of royalties being paid out. They really need those royalties to fund their operations. So, yeah, we're focusing on that. That's kind of our main avenue. I will say, any of you guys who are developers who are building on Ethereum or any EVM blockchain, we welcome you over to Energi. Hit me up on Telegram, my alias, Tommy World Power. Actually, hit me up on Twitter, on X, as it's called now. And I'm happy to even help you directly get plugged into everything. But if you guys are building an NFT collection, or you have an NFT collection, and this lack of royalties is something that's hurting you, then definitely reach out to me as well. Yeah, we've been building the Gonna Make It NFT marketplace the past 2 years. This is going to be the main app I focus on Energi. Other people, I welcome anyone to build out Energi with whatever they want to have, but this is going to be my main focus because it's such a sore point for NFTs. Not only are they having their NFTs stolen, like other people with crypto, wallet drainers and all that stuff, but it's the lack of royalties, which is crazy to me. You guys, it's a reflection of our state of consciousness. This has been going on for like a year. The state of consciousness of the world is at that level where somehow we just tolerate that. And that's what really Energi is about, you guys. It's about raising the level of consciousness, raising how we care about each other and treat each other. That's really the spirit and heart and soul of Energi is that I saw it on X today. It's like, we need to be more loving of each other. And that's really what I brought in. That's how I got to where I got. Wasn't planning on solving security. I was just planning on on coming from a place of love, making a blockchain that's doing things right. And this is the result. And that's where the Energi brand is, you guys. And yeah.
Oh, awesome, man. No, Tommy, that's what I love about you, man, that you guys are even keeping, like, people can get a direct line to you and stuff to build on there. You guys are open and ready for innovation. And I think, again, like, focusing on these big fundamental elements, like, there is something to be said about the use cases of DeFi. And I think even NFTs in the long run, whether it's PFPs or other use cases, again, I think that's still to be determined. But I think the biggest thing is that you focused looking back on the prior cycle and fixing those issues. One of the points I've been trying to bring up to people that I think have taken the more optimistic approach and where I come from is that I resonate with you a lot, Tommy, that, like, I look across the industry as someone who is early to DeFi. I look for those trends, those exciting potential opportunities in crypto, and those next narratives that people get excited about. And I see people not really reflecting on those issues that left us in the bear market that we were in, I think, for so long. And I think a lot of people have that unfortunate kind of arrogant take where it's like, it's just all going to come back and it's going to be better than ever. We're just going to soar higher into the sky and stuff. And I think we can't have a proper bull market until we fix those fundamental issues, or at least make an attempt to do it so we can put a dent in it. And I think that's, again, what you guys have been working on with Energi. So I give you my hats off on that, man. So just again, if anyone wanted to figure out a little bit more about Energi, where would they go to? I'll leave any links down below in the description, guys. But I think, Tommy, if someone's building, best to reach out to you. And if they want to learn about Energi, go to energi.world.
For sure, yeah. Definitely follow me on X at TommyWorldPower. That's where I'm most active. And you can message me there. Got my DMs open. Energi.world, as Nick was saying, I'll drop a link. Energi with an I, Energi. We have all our links there. You can join our community. We're on Uniswap, so we bridged over to that. So we have a lot of the infrastructure already built. So you guys can find us, connect with us, and ultimately that's what it's about. Nick, you said it. It's every cycle we've been through has been worse in terms of the crime and pain and stuff, and it's gonna just keep getting worse until we become the change. And that's what it's about. And I kind of started it, but I can't do this. I can't do this alone. So if you guys are in that same sort of vibration that you want to see, the world ultimately evolve, this is what we need to do. This is what, and look at Energi as something that you're part of. Look at it as if, you're a co-creator of it. I created the foundation for this, but it's really just the beginning. But it's the right foundation, and that's the key. You got to build things. You want to build a skyscraper, you got to build on the right foundation, and that's what we have at Energi, and we'll keep it going. So
I've been following you, man, since 2018. It's been not only a privilege to have you as a friend, man, but also, as always, it's great to have these conversations and just to see how Energi's grown over the years, man. I wish you all the best with that. And again, just feel happy to be a part of it as well, and kind of getting the word out there about it. Thank you, man, for making the time, Tommy, as always. We're going to see what happens in the market, man. It's an interesting time, but as always, above all, man, it was great to have you on. Thanks for coming on, Tommy.
Thank you, Nick. Always a pleasure.